EU chiefs are poised to offer Theresa May a pledge of their intention to conclude trade talks with the UK by the end of 2021 in a fresh attempt to break the Brexit deadlock, it emerged last night. Whitehall officials expect an exchange of letters between Westminster and Brussels in the coming days that will set the deadline for the next round of negotiations in the hope of allaying MPs' fears about the Prime Minister's withdrawal agreement. They hope that an explicit signal that a full trade deal can be concluded by the end of the UK's transition out of EU will demonstrate that the controversial backstop mechanism never be used. Details of the pledge are expected to be unveiled ahead of the Commons Brexit debate starting tomorrow and running up to next week's meaningful vote on her deal. But government insiders fear a letter from the EU alone will not be enough to persuade Eurosceptic Tory MPs to drop their threat to reject the withdrawal agreement in the Commons vote and expect the Prime Minister to press for further concessions over the next few days. Mrs May yesterday said she was continuing to press the EU for further assurances about the backstop in her drive to win the backing of MPs for the withdrawal bill. In the coming days, what we will set out is not just about the EU, but also about what we can do domestically, she said during a visit to a hospital in Liverpool. So we will be setting out measures which will be specific to Northern Ireland. We will be setting out proposals for a greater role for Parliament as we move into the next stage of the negotiation, and we are continuing to work on further assurances on further undertakings from the European Union in relation to the concern that has been expressed by parliamentarians. On their first day back at Westminster after the Christmas break, a string of Eurosceptic Tory backbenchers signalled renewed determination not to back down and support Mrs May's withdrawal agreement. Former Tory Cabinet Minister Sir John Redwood said, "Opposition to the withdrawal agreement goes way beyond the unacceptable Irish backstop and includes paying huge sums of money with nothing nailed down over the future partnership, and worse still plunging us into 21 to 45 more months of endless rows and disagreements with all the uncertainty that would bring." Sir Bill Cash, chairman of the Commons European Scrutiny Committee, said the backstop was not the whole story by any means in the list of deal's flaws. Speaking in the Commons, Sir Bill told ministers, "There are so many aspects to the withdrawal agreement which are matters which go way beyond mere assurances. Reassurances are going to get nowhere, and they are certainly not going to convince anybody who's thinking hard about this when it comes to the vote next week." Mrs May was given a warning of more parliamentary hostilities over Brexit yesterday when Labour sources hinted that the party could back an amendment seeking to block Treasury cash for no-deal preparations. A source close to Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn suggested the party's MPs could be instructed to vote for the amendment, tabled by Labour backbencher Yvette Cooper, in a Commons vote today. The amendment has also been backed by pro-Brussels Tories including former Minister Nicky Morgan, Sir Oliver Letwin and Nick Bowles. During clashes in the Commons yesterday, Mr Corbyn told ministers there could be no more running away from the meaningful vote. He tabled a Commons urgent question yesterday in an attempt to summon the Prime Minister to the dispatch box to update MPs on her progress in winning concessions from the EU. EU Exit Secretary Stephen Barclay answered his question in place of Mrs May. However, Mr Corbyn told MPs, "With less than 3 months until we reach the Article 50 deadline, there can be no more hiding and no more running away. This issue will define Britain's future and should not be decided by the internal machinations of the Conservative Party. This House and this country deserve much better." Mrs May is due to speak to European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker later this week, but no further negotiation meetings are scheduled, a Brussels official said yesterday. Margaritis Schinas, a Commission spokesman, said the Prime Minister and Mr. Juncker had a friendly conversation by telephone on Friday and will be talking again this week. He said the withdrawal agreement was the best and the only deal possible and would not be renegotiated. Mr. Shines said, "There is no negotiation because everything on the table has been established as approved, established, achieved. The priority now is to await events, monitor what is happening with the ratification procedure on the UK side, and no, there will not be any meeting between the Commission and our negotiator teams." The Prime Minister's spokesman yesterday confirmed that Mrs. May spoke to a string of EU leaders during Parliament's Christmas break, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President Emmanuel Macron, Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte and Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, as well as European Council President Donald Tusk and European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker. She was also in touch with Irish Premier Leo Varadkar,